Lowe's just killed this major brand, and almost no one realizes what's really happening. If you clicked this video because something felt strange with Flex lately, you were absolutely right. The empty shelves, the crazy discounts, the disappearing displays, none of it is an accident. Lowe is quietly shutting down the brand they once pushed as their future. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. Most people completely missed the signs. We were all looking in the wrong direction while the real story unfolded behind the scenes. But now that you're here, you're about to finally understand what Lowe's has been doing and why it changes everything. Stay with me, because once you hear the truth, you'll never walk through a Lowe's tool aisle the same way again. The rise before the fall. Flex entered the scene like the chosen one. The brand Lowe's promised would reshape the entire power tool world. They told us Flex was the next big thing. Stronger than the giants, smarter than the old players, built with cutting-edge battery tech, and backed by something unheard of in this industry, a true lifetime warranty. For a moment, it felt like Lowe's was finally stepping into the ring with a real contender. People believed the hype. Pros, homeowners, and weekend warriors all leaned in, thinking, this is it. This is the brand that's going to challenge Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, all of them. Lowe's showed Flex off like a trophy, presenting it as their ultimate answer to Home Depot's tool empire. Expectations shot through the roof. But what none of us realized was that while Flex looked like it was rising, the foundation underneath it was already cracking, not because the tools were bad, but because something else was quietly working against it. Flex didn't fall because it lacked power or performance. Flex fell because it never became the force Lowe's needed it to be. The hype was loud, but the traction never matched it. And from that moment forward, Flex was fighting a battle it didn't even know it had already lost. And the real reason Flex never stood a chance started long before the first tool ever hit a Lowe's shelf. The man who wanted revenge. To understand why Flex never stood a chance, you have to understand the man running the show. The CEO of Lowe's wasn't just another executive in a suit. He was the former number 2 at Home Depot, a man who spent years climbing the ladder only to be passed over at the very top. And that kind of rejection doesn't just fade away, it changes people, it fuels them. When he finally got out of his non-compete agreement, he didn't quietly move on. He came back into retail with a chip on his shoulder the size of a tool chest. After an infamous run at JCPenney, he stepped into the CEO seat at Lowe's with one mission carved into his mindset: beat the company that beat him, beat Home Depot, beat the culture he once served, beat the empire that didn't choose him. And how do you beat a company like Home Depot? You copy the one thing that made them unstoppable: exclusive control over powerful, loyal tool brands. Home Depot had Milwaukee, Ryobi, Rigid. It was a fortress of orange shelves stacked with red and green loyalty. Lowe's needed its own army. They needed their own signature brand. They needed Flex. But here's the twist. Flex wasn't chosen because it was perfect. Flex was chosen because it was a weapon. A weapon meant to take on Home Depot's dominance and rewrite the story the CEO believed should have been his all along. What he didn't expect was that this weapon would backfire long before the war even started. Flex hits the wall. Flex had everything it needed to win on paper: real power, advanced battery tech, durable builds, and the kind of performance that could genuinely go toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the industry. People who tried the tools didn't walk away disappointed. In fact, many were shocked at how good Flex actually was. But great tools alone don't guarantee victory. Not in a market built on loyalty, habit, and massive ecosystems. The first problem was speed, or rather, the lack of it. Flex didn't release tools fast enough to convince pros to switch over. Milwaukee and DeWalt users didn't just want a powerful drill. They wanted an entire universe of tools ready to go when they needed them. Flex's lineup grew, but too slowly to feel like a reliable long-term investment. And when pros don't feel confident in the future of a platform, they don't jump ship. Then came the inconsistencies. Some Lowe's stores carried decent Flex displays, while others barely stocked anything at all. You'd see a full aisle in one location, and then nothing but empty hooks in another. Meanwhile, marketing for Flex felt confused and over the top, with early campaigns that made people roll their eyes instead of lean in. Even though the tools were great, the image never matched the promise. And the battery leak rumors didn't help, even though it wasn't the batteries leaking, just the protective cushion material. The damage was already done. In a world where trust is everything, even small misunderstandings can hit like a sledgehammer. Slow rollout, spotty presence, shaky first impressions. Flex wasn't losing because it was weak. Flex was losing because it wasn't moving fast enough to matter. And Lowe's saw the writing on the wall long before any of us did. The decision nobody was supposed to know about. The first real signs that something was wrong with Flex didn't come from press releases or official statements. They came from confused customers walking into their local Lowe's and noticing something strange. Entire Flex sections were shrinking. Displays were half empty. Some stores had tools scattered across clearance racks, while others removed Flex altogether as if the brand had never existed. And when people asked employees what was going on, the answers were vague, inconsistent, or brushed off entirely. Whispers started spreading online. Is Flex getting dropped? Is this a reset? Is this just inventory turnover? No one knew. For weeks, the rumors grew louder, but the official silence from Lowe's made everything even more suspicious. Customers compared notes, screenshots, and store experiences. Something was happening, something big, but no one could put their finger on it. Then the pattern became impossible to ignore. Tools weren't just on sale, they were being cleared out. Entire aisles were being reset. Some stores were liquidating Flex products at prices that didn't even make sense. And that's when the truth finally broke through the noise. A senior-level insider, someone well above the store manager level, quietly confirmed what everyone feared. Lowe's was pulling Flex out of most of its stores. Not because they were replacing it, not because of a supply issue, but because they were repositioning the brand entirely. Flex would still exist, but not as a major in-store brand. Most of it would be moved online. Only a handful of locations with strong Flex sales would continue carrying it on shelves. This wasn't a reset. This wasn't a pause. This was a pullback, a strategic retreat that signaled the end of Flex as Lowe's flagship Pro line. And before we go deeper into why Lowe's made this decision and what it means for the future of Flex, this is the perfect moment to remind you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. It helps more people see what's really going on behind the scenes, and it makes sure you don't miss the rest of this story. Because trust me, the next part is where everything finally clicks. The insider confirmation was just the beginning. The real proof of Flex's downfall wasn't in what people said, but in what Lowe's did next. And that proof was written in the price tags, the clearance bloodbath. When the first clearance tags showed up, people thought it was a simple seasonal markdown, the kind of deal Lowe's throws out to move a little stock. But then the numbers dropped lower, and then hit levels nobody could logically explain. That's when it became obvious. This wasn't a sale. This was an execution. Suddenly, pro-grade tools that once sold for premium prices were being practically given away. Impact drivers with lifetime warranties were going for the price of cheap beginner kits. Drill drivers, grinders, nailers, all slashed to numbers that didn't even look real. Prices that made people double-take, screenshot, drive across town, and ask, are these even correct? A $49 impact driver kit, a $79 drill kit, a $79 half-inch impact wrench that used to cost $200, a $49 2 amp-hour stacked lithium battery that normally retailed for over $100, nailers that once felt premium now sitting on clearance racks for $99. These weren't discounts. These were fire signals. When a brand gets gutted, this, aggressively, it isn't because the company loves giving customers a deal. It happens because the retailer is trying to move inventory fast as possible, to make room for something else, or to erase a brand quietly without making headlines. And customers knew it too. Some stores were stripped clean within hours. Others held random leftover pieces, like fossil fragments of what Flex used to be. Meanwhile, the online listings mirrored the chaos. Some items in stock, some vanished, some sitting at clearance prices that made tool forums explode. People weren't celebrating deals anymore. They were asking the same question over and over: what does Lowe's know that we don't? Because when a retailer slashes prices this hard, it's not generosity, it's strategy. And Flex was caught in the middle of a strategy they were never meant to survive. But the real reason for this purge? That part is even more revealing and far more unsettling. Why Lowe's really pulled the trigger. The downfall of Flex wasn't about power, performance, or potential. It wasn't even about sales numbers alone. The truth runs deeper, and it cuts straight into the heart of how big retailers think, and how little they care about the brands they once claimed to champion. Lowe's never had a Flex problem. Lowe's had a crowding problem. They were juggling too many competing tool brands, each one demanding shelf space, marketing, and consumer attention. They had Cobalt, they had skill, they had Craftsman, they had ego dominating outdoor power equipment. And then, on top of all that, they tried to push Flex as their premium, pro-level line. But here's the reality: no retailer wins by confusing its identity. Home Depot keeps things simple. Their tool aisle is practically a shrine to Milwaukee, Ryobi, and Rigid, 3 brands, one ecosystem royalty, a clear hierarchy. Lowe's, on the other hand, kept stacking brand on top of brand until none of them stood out. And in a crowded field, any brand that fails to dominate gets squeezed out. Flex was supposed to rise above the rest. Instead, it blended into the noise. But that wasn't Flex's fault. It was Lowe's strategy, collapsing under its own weight. Behind closed doors, Lowe's came to a decision: streamline the aisle, tighten the ecosystem, support fewer brands with more force. And Flex didn't make the cut. Not because the tools weren't good, but because they didn't fit the new story Lowe's wanted to tell. A story about clarity, simplicity, predictability, and complete control. Flex was too new, too ambitious, too uncertain, too slow to take the crown Lowe's wanted it to wear. So instead of investing more, Lowe's pulled back, quietly, strategically, and ruthlessly. But Lowe's might have just made a mistake, one that could haunt them far longer than they expect. The ghost brand that won't die. When Lowe's pushed Flex out of its stores, most people assumed that was the end of the story. In the tool world, when a big retailer steps back from a brand, that brand usually disappears. It becomes a forgotten name, a quiet footnote, a remember when, buried in old forum conversations. Losing shelf space is usually the same thing as losing your pulse. But Flex didn't follow that path. Flex did something almost no one expected. Even as Lowe's dismantled displays and slapped clearance stickers on everything with a Flex logo, the brand didn't fade. It didn't stumble. It simply stepped sideways, out of the aisles and into a different arena. Flex didn't vanish. It moved. Amazon still carried the entire lineup. Acme Tools promoted Flex like nothing had changed. Ohio Power Tool, a retailer trusted by professionals, continued to stock Flex without missing a beat. This wasn't a brand collapsing. This was a brand relocating, choosing new ground instead of surrendering the old one. And that makes sense when you look at who built Flex. This brand isn't some rookie operation trying to compete with the big names. Flex comes from Chervon, the same powerhouse behind Ego, one of the most respected outdoor equipment brands in the country. Chervon has resources. They have technology. They have staying power. They weren't about to let Flex die just because Lowe's changed its mind. Then something unexpected happened. Those extreme clearance prices at Lowe's created a wave of new buyers who never would have touched Flex before. People walked into stores expecting to grab a cheap backup tool and walked out shocked by how good Flex actually was. And when real users get real tools into their hands, they talk. Suddenly, reviews, forum posts, and comments started popping up from people who were genuinely impressed. The irony is almost poetic. When Lowe's stopped promoting Flex, that's when Flex finally started proving itself. It survived the purge, found new customers, and kept its distribution network strong. It held on to its warranty, its reputation, and its performance. Flex became something different, something harder to kill. It became a ghost brand, not dead, not fully alive in the mainstream, just present, quietly, powerfully, and patiently. Ghost brands don't stay ghosts forever. They either fade away for good, or they return stronger than before. And in Flex's case, everything points toward a comeback, especially if the right retailer steps in to give the brand the consistent support Lowe's never delivered. If that happens, if Flex finds a new home or reclaims the spotlight through online dominance, Lowe's may look back and realize they walked away from a brand with massive potential. Because Flex didn't die. Flex adapted. Flex endured. And sometimes, the brands that survive the shadows are the ones that shine the brightest when they finally step back into the light. And that brings us to the bigger truth Lowe's never wanted you to see, the real reason this brand was sacrificed. The bigger plot behind the killing. Lowe's didn't gut Flex because of a bad quarter or a weak product launch. They didn't pull Flex off shelves because customers rejected it, or because the tools failed, or because the brand didn't catch on. Those are surface-level explanations, the kind companies give when they want you to stop asking questions. But the real reason Flex was sacrificed is far more calculated, far more strategic, and far more revealing about how major retailers think. Inside a big box store, shelf space is not just real estate, it's a throne. It's a declaration of loyalty. It's the retailer saying, "These are our chosen champions." And somewhere along the way, Flex stopped being one of them. For years, Lowe's tried to build an aisle that pleased everyone. They wanted to be the one-stop destination for every kind of tool buyer. The professional contractor, the budget shopper, the homeowner who just needed a drill, the DIYer looking to upgrade, the outdoor power enthusiasts. And in trying to serve everyone, Lowe's built a tool aisle that was bursting at the seams with brands fighting for attention. You had Cobalt, the reliable house brand; Craftsman, the iconic name they fought to bring back; Skill, the revived consumer line; Ego, their outdoor powerhouse; Metabo HPT, and Bosch sprinkled throughout. And then Flex, the golden child, the one that was supposed to lead them into battle. But here's where the story twists. When you try to elevate too many brands at once, you end up elevating none. Customers walk into the aisle and feel overwhelmed. The message becomes muddy, the identity gets lost, and the hero brand, the one that's supposed to shout the loudest, gets drowned out by the noise. Home Depot never made that mistake. They built something Lowe's envied: simplicity. Milwaukee owns the pro market. Ryobi owns the homeowner market. Rigid sits squarely in the middle. 3 levels, 3 audiences, 1 clean story. That clarity is why Home Depot's tool aisle feels powerful. You always know exactly who it's built for. Lowe's wanted that same effect, but they built the opposite. They created a crowded stage, then handed Flex a microphone, while everyone else kept shouting. And slowly, a realization formed at the top. Flex wasn't failing. Lowe's strategy was. So they did what corporations always do when a plan starts cracking. They didn't fix the plan. They removed the piece that didn't fit neatly anymore. Flex wasn't cut because it was the weakest. Flex was cut because it was the newest, the boldest, the least established, the easiest to sacrifice. But here's the part that reveals the true motive behind the kill. Lowe's didn't remove Flex to replace it. They removed Flex to simplify the aisle, to tighten control, to reclaim clarity. They were streamlining the narrative, even if it meant abandoning the brand they once promised would be their future. And that decision carries a heavy price. When you yank a major brand off the shelves, customers notice. Not just Flex customers, everyone notices. The tool aisle stops feeling stable. Loyalty begins to wobble. Shoppers start asking, if Flex can disappear, what about the brand I'm invested in? That doubt spreads faster than any clearance sale, and Lowe's knows this. They know pulling a brand affects trust, but they accepted that risk. They decided that controlling the aisle mattered more than supporting the brand they once championed. But here's the twist they didn't see coming. When you try to kill a brand that refuses to die, the story doesn't end. It evolves. Flex is still alive. Flex still has a following. Flex still has a manufacturer that believes in it. And when a brand survives the axe, it becomes unpredictable, even dangerous to the retailer that tried to bury it, because Lowe's didn't just remove a competitor to simplify their shelves. They removed a brand that could rise again without them and make them regret ever letting it go. And that leads us directly into the final chapter, the twist that ties this entire story together. The twist Lowe's didn't expect. Lowe's thought they were making a clean, quiet, calculated move. They believed that pulling Flex from most of their stores would simplify their tool aisle, sharpen their branding, and solidify their control over which tool lines would define their future. In their minds, it was a strategic reset, nothing more. They assumed Flex would quietly fade away, and customers would simply adjust. But that's not what happened. Because in trying to erase Flex as a major in-store brand, Lowe's didn't just eliminate a tool line, they created a crack in the confidence customers had in their entire tool aisle. Suddenly, people weren't just wondering what happened to Flex. They were asking bigger questions. If a brand with a lifetime warranty can be pulled this abruptly, what does that say about every other brand on those shelves? If Lowe's is willing to abandon their so-called premium pro platform, what else are they willing to walk away from? And if a customer invests in a tool ecosystem today, will it still be supported tomorrow? Those questions don't disappear. They echo, they spread, they reshape the way shoppers think about every purchase they make inside that store. Here's the twist Lowe's never saw coming. Flex didn't die. Flex didn't vanish. Flex didn't collapse into obscurity. Flex just stepped outside Lowe's shadow and kept going. The brand is still alive on Amazon, still available at Acme Tools, still supported by Ohio Power Tool, and still backed by Chervon, a global manufacturer that doesn't bow to the decisions of a single retailer. Flex still has loyal fans. Flex still earns new believers every day, especially from those who picked up Flex tools during the clearance purge and were shocked at just how good they actually are. Lowe's didn't kill Flex, they just let it walk. And now Flex is free to show up anywhere. If another big retailer picks them up, if Flex lands in a store that truly understands how to build a flagship brand, Lowe's will have willingly handed away the very tool line they once called their future. They won't just lose shelf presence, they'll lose the narrative. A brand that survives being cut loose becomes something far more dangerous. To the retailer that abandoned it, it becomes a wild card, a comeback story waiting to happen, a brand with nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. Flex no longer depends on Lowe's, but Lowe's may one day wish they still had Flex, because the real twist behind this story is simple. In trying to protect their tool aisle, Lowe's may have accidentally created their next competitor. And if you want to see how this plays out, if Flex rises again, if Lowe's regrets this decision, and if this move reshapes the entire tool world, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is far from over. So now you've seen what really happened behind the scenes. Flex didn't disappear, it didn't fail, and it definitely wasn't forgotten. What happened was a strategic hit, a quiet, calculated move by a retailer trying to rewrite its future, and accidentally rewriting Flex's instead. Lowe's may have tried to shrink the brand, But in doing so, they sparked a conversation that refuses to die. People are watching, people are questioning, and people are paying attention in a way Lowe's never expected. Because the truth is simple. When a brand survives a hit like this, it becomes unpredictable. It becomes interesting. It becomes dangerous. And Flex is now standing at the edge of something new. A future no longer controlled by the company that tried to contain it. Whether Flex claws its way back, finds a new home, or shocks the industry with a comeback no one saw coming. That story is still unfolding, and you're here at the beginning of it. If you want to follow every twist, every update, every move Flex makes next, and how Lowe's responds to the fallout of their own decision, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter of a story that's only getting louder. Because this wasn't the end of Flex. It was the beginning of whatever happens next.